All right, it's 9 o'clock here on this Tuesday, Fat Tuesday.
Fat Tuesday, exactly.
Fat Tuesday.
Lunar New Year,
this
Ramadan,
is the
all these
Prime
beautiful
Time.
things
That's
happening.
Tony P. I'm producer Chris. Thank you so much for joining us here on the live Zone Prime Time. Tony P. Happy Mardi Gras in its honor. Well,
Yes.
let's go ahead. I had a little soundtrack
Oh,
for us.
Fats Domino, yes.
Let's see. Is it playing?
Huh?
Can we hear it? Where are you?
Come on.
Oh, come on.
Are you here? Are you in the ether?
Stand by.
This time I'm walking to New Orleans.
That's what we needed. That's what we needed. There's our live picture. Live picture from Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Hopefully this stays classy. I'm relying on all of those
Oh,
drunks,
we'll have some fun right there.
all of those people enjoying their hurricanes and more, fetching their beats to keep things PG while we're on the air
It's
here.
like she sees us.
No
through the
guarantee.
camera.
No guarantee here. I have no control over what goes on down there in Bourbon. Tony P, have you ever done Mardi Gras in New Orleans?
I've never been to New Orleans at all. You've
never been to New
Chris,
Orleans at all?
This is my first time seeing New Orleans in real time ever. I mean, I watched Super Bowl last year, but I haven't seen New Orleans. This is beautiful.
Do you know what is the phrase?
So rustic.
If there's a French phrase for letting the good times roll. But
Oh, there is? Oh,
Yeah, I don't know it.
Talk about
I don't
Fats
remember.
Domino to the cars. I love
Fats
that
Domino to the cars,
transition.
letting the good times roll, baby. That's what we're all
That
about
is
here.
some truly
Anyway,
great
thank
DJ
you to everyone.
work.
This is
DJ
our shot
Chris,
from
everybody.
our shot from Earth Cam on this Fat
Do we
Tuesday.
have one there?
You mentioned
Wow.
that it's not only Mardi Gras, it's not only Fat Tuesday.
Yes.
It is also the start of the Lunar New Year.
Yep.
The Lunar New Year, the year of the fire horse, I believe.
Yes, really very cool stuff, and I'll tell you, like, there's so many wonderful celebrations that are happening in the DMV and around the country. To all of our friends and neighbors celebrating Lunar New Year, wishing them, of course, a very safe and happy new Lunar New Year. Lunar New Year. Just say, I don't know. I said the new first.
Angie Goff tried to explain to me something about it. Oliver wants to know in our chat, Tony P, how does it feel to be such a king? Our Mardi Gras king.
Can I just
Did
say?
you have a king cake?
Can I just say, first of all, YouTube is one of the nicest places for comments. I have a YouTube page now. Like, everybody's so nice on YouTube. Thank you for being so awesome.
A nice change of pace, I imagine.
Yes, I'm not a king at all. I am very much a prince in training,
prince
or maybe
in
even the court
training.
jester. But you know what? The jester did very well by the king too. So thank you, my friend, for the support. And I hope you're having a wonderful start to the whether Fat Tuesday, the start to Lent, or start to Ramadan, or Lunar New Year. How you celebrate?
This is the last hurrah before
the last hurrah for
Lent,
all of
course.
us.
Tony P, I'm not sure.
A lot of fasting, a lot of changes.
I've never actually asked you this question,
Ooh.
but do you observe Lent?
Yeah, so I'm Catholic,
Okay,
and I've been
likewise.
observing Lent.
Do you plan
Lent.
to give something up this year?
I'm still working on it. I have a few more hours, but I'm still working on what I want to do. I think I'm a big sweet tooth. I mean, I'm
Okay.
all about sugar. I'm a sugar freak. I'm sugar freaky, But I think overall that I need to give something like that up because I love sugar so much. And I've been eating Crunch bars like the day is long, like they're basically pistachios at this point. But I think that's one issue I need to give up. Also, I've been having kind of like an anger streak in me where like I'm very angry at myself. Whenever I'll mess up on air, I'll go home and get mad at myself, or I'll get
short.
and I need to like be a little bit, I don't know, give myself more grace. That kind of sounds very selfish, but I need to give myself more grace. And I think just not getting angry or riled up at little inconveniences that happen. I kind of have that ability sometimes. I have the nice guy appearance. Sometimes I get a little bit, mean. So I need to kind of work on that side.
I get to see that side of them.
Oh, I'm not that
when these
bad.
cameras go off, that's when the real
I throw
Tony
punches.
P
I throw punches.
emerges.
Hold on.
Anyway, we will keep
Sorry.
we will keep an eye on all the fun down on Bourbon Street. Of course, we do have a lot of news to get to
Yes, we do.
as well. It was a busy Tuesday. I can't always say that. But like I said, we'll check back in on all the
We
fun
will. A
coming
lot
up
of
here in
celebration. Be
just a
safe.
little bit. But we do have some
lot of
more serious
rebirth of the
news
new
that we
year.
need to get to tonight, and I want to kick things off back here at home in Centerville, Virginia. Investigators still trying to figure out what caused that gas leak that led to an explosion over the weekend. Dozens of families, I should say, remain evacuated, with potentially dozens more displaced. Neighbors say they started smelling gas Sunday night before a house exploded along Quail Pond Court. Several agencies, including the NTSB, held a town hall earlier today to meet with residents. Take a listen.
People were concerned People are angry that they're displaced. People are concerned that it wasn't detected beforehand. When your home blows up and somebody's home blows up in your neighborhood, it makes you realize that that could happen to you. So how do we keep safe? What precautions should we take?
So Tony P, as of this afternoon, fire officials say 46 homes are still unsafe to be inside. 82 homes are without natural gas service. That was from the first town hall that was held earlier this morning. There was another one at 7 o'clock tonight. Fox 5 Shamari Stone was there. He'll have a live update tonight at 10 right here on Fox Local.
Just so scary, first of all. I'm glad that they caught it because, again, you don't want to have multiple horrendous, tragic situations like we saw in Centerville. But I think overall, I know that the NTSB has taken over the investigation. They may have to expand the perimeter potentially of where this impact could be or safety precautions if the issue is not mitigated. And the question that I have is, where is this issue coming from? What is the main piping situation? Is it because it hasn't been upkept, or hasn't had good upkeep, use a better verb, hasn't been really dealing with upkeep very well, and that's why the pipes are older, maybe that's why they're not working as much? Or is it an issue with the natural gas itself? Because a lot of people rely on energy to heat their homes, to run their lives through natural gas, these pipelines.
Yeah, no question.
And does this mean in Virginia, or just generally in the DMV, does this mean that there's new regulations that may need to take place, whether it be Governor Moore on the Maryland side or Governor Spanberger Governor Spanberger in Virginia? Does that mean new regulations need to take place, Chris?
Yeah.
Because, again, this is a major, major issue that is expanding to multiple homes, and who knows how far this issue could go back. And if the NTSB expands that perimeter, then we have not just an isolated issue, but we have an entire
neighborhood.
A neighborhood, and plus, could it be a whole system-wide issue for the DMV generally?
Yeah.
That's one, again, not to be too
isolate the source
scaremongering,
of
but
that leak soon. We'll stand by for updates from Shamari Stone coming up in
I want
just
to hear
a
what
little
the
bit.
issues are technically from that.
In the meantime, Tony P, let's talk about what else you were keeping an eye on.
Yes, absolutely.
On this
So
Tuesday
yes,
afternoon.
maybe the earliest rundown we've actually done, my friend. And I love it. We're doing the rundown to get you all fresh
Let's dive
with
into
new
it.
headlines.
These are your headlines from your Tuesday.
Headlines. It's from the headliner king, according to the YouTube comments. We're going to start here, right here in D.C. An 18-year-old was arrested today after Capitol Police said he ran towards the U.S. Capitol carrying a loaded shotgun. Authorities identified him as Carter Camacho of Smyrna, Georgia, and police said he exited a white Mercedes near Maryland Avenue Southwest and then moved towards the west front wearing a tactical vest and gloves. Officers ordered him to drop the weapon, and he did comply, while investigators recovered additional items from the vehicle, including more protective gear. Camacho was charged with carrying a rifle without a license and possession of an unregistered firearm and ammunition, and no injuries at this time have been reported. In the world of entertainment, CBS and late-night host Stephen Colbert became the focus of a media dispute after Colbert said CBS declined to air an interview he taped with Texas Democratic lawmaker and Senate candidate James Tallarico. The network cited concerns tied to federal communications rules and equal time regulations overseen by the FCC, while Colbert posted the interview online and criticized what he described as corporate caution amid scrutiny from the FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr. Now, CBS is also responding to Stephen Colbert, saying that account isn't exactly true. It was just a legal guidance, not a mandate to take down the interview. In the world of foreign policy, U.S. and Iranian officials met today in Geneva for another round of indirect nuclear talks, with Oman serving as the intermediary once again. Iranian officials said the two sides agreed on guiding principles and committed to continue negotiations, though major disagreements remained over sanctions relief and limits on uranium enrichment overall. The talks unfolded as international monitors have continued tracking Iran's high-level enrichment activity. Also in foreign policy and in Geneva, Russian and Ukrainian delegations gathered in Geneva for a U.S. brokered discussion series aimed at exploring a potential path towards de-escalation. Ukraine's delegation was led by Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, while Russia's team was headed by Kremlin aide Vladimir Medinsky. Officials described the talks as focused on security frameworks and humanitarian concerns, with no immediate breakthrough on territorial disputes at this time, as President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine said that his people would not agree, that the citizens would not allow for him to give up territory to the Russians. That's one thing we're focusing on, is the territorial dispute. Florida Republican Congressman Randy Fine is facing bipartisan criticism after posting an Islamophobic remark comparing Muslims to dogs on social media recently. Civil rights organizations, including CARE, condemned the comments, and Democratic leaders called for accountability, while Fine defended his statements, saying they reflected concerns tied to national security and the Israel-Gaza conflict. Warner Bros. Discovery is reopening takeover talks with Skydance owned Paramount after Netflix granted a 7-day waiver, allowing Warner to engage with the competing bidder. The window is set to hear Paramount's best and final offer with a deadline of February 23rd. Warner's board has continued backing the existing all-cash deal with Netflix for the company's studio and streaming assets, including HBO Max, while Paramount's deal will be for all of Warner Bros. Discovery's assets, including the cable network, CNN, and others. That's one thing we're going to be focusing on, as those proposals are different. And this window is pretty unique, Chris, in this type of situation with the deal already signed with Netflix. Also in the world of television, for people who love linear TV, you're going to want to perk your ears up on this one, because you'll love to hear this. January television viewing ratings reached a 12-month high, with total usage up 3.7% from December overall, according to Nielsen's latest gauge report. Cable viewing climbed 9%, driven largely by live sports and a heavy cable news cycle, while broadcast also saw gains lifted by NFL games and a surge in scripted dramas, which rose 24% month over month. Streaming, of course, remained the largest share of total TV usage at 47%, increasing 2.7% over in December, with strong performance across original series and licensed content. Of course, YouTube is leading all streaming platforms as we speak. Also in Hollywood, actor Shia LaBeouf was arrested in New Orleans during Mardi Gras after police said an altercation turned physical. Authorities charged him with 2 counts of simple battery, and no serious injuries, though, were reported. And finally, for our Black History Month fact of the day, and of course we send all of our condolences to the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who passed away today at the age of 84. And this special Black History Month fact is about him. Reverend Jesse Jackson played a significant role in international diplomacy as well as domestic politics, and during moments of crisis around the world. In 1984, he secured the release of captured U.S. Navy Lieutenant Robert Goodman from Syria and negotiated the freedom of 48 prisoners in Cuba. In 1990, Jackson became the first American to bring home U.S. citizens who were being held as human shields by Saddam Hussein in Iraq, stepping into the high-stakes diplomatic role and helping to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East. So, of course, Jesse Jackson will be missed, a true American civil rights icon and hero to so many people across this country, and truly moved the ball forward for civil rights and carried on the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, and we're going to talk all about that coming up after the break with Bishop Joel Peebles from right here in the DMV, talking all about his legacy. In the meantime, we do want to take you back out to New Orleans, where the party continues on Bourbon Street. Just a heads up, Tony P., we are getting some comments in the chat over here.
Boy.
I did want, Cassia says that she is also a sugar freak. So you've got some company there. And also to West Virginia Ben, who is not alone in the chat right now. So West Virginia Ben, your wish is our command. You've got some new people there hanging out with you. Real Raw Fitness says that apps not paying for cable services, because Oliver says you need the cable to turn on the TV. So there's a little bit of a debate in there. But listen, whether it's the stream that you're watching right now here on Fox Local or on Fox 5 DC's YouTube page, shout out to everyone in the chat there weighing in, or if you're watching on linear TV, live is key. It is. Live is key, because it is
the numbers
only
are here.
Shared experience that people have these days, whether it's sports or whether it's news. It is live, it is happening now, and that is what people gravitate to. Everything else they can watch on their own time.
Exactly.
It's the, there's no more of that 8 p.m. on a Thursday night Seinfeld where the next day everyone comes in and talks about it.
The water cooler conversation.
Exactly.
We need to have more of that.
Unless the one exception to this, of course, is HBO Sunday nights. They absolutely dominate with each new show that they release. They drive that conversation Monday morning. Right now, it's like the Game of Thrones spinoff. When that's over, it'll be the next thing. When that's over, it'll be the next thing. And then
that's the goal, man. And I think, overall, I think streaming is going to take a very cable-like approach. People can't stand having to go to different apps and go in and out. You're going to have a TV guide eventually for streaming. It's going to all be connected.
Is secular.
Exactly. And I think TV is going to come back, and it would be like this again, streaming, like what we're doing. And I think live events, I would love to see more of the late night shows. We talked about Stephen Colbert in the hour. I think late night shows may need to start being live. And for that to happen, I think you have to maybe do it at a earlier time, 9, 10 o'clock, for example, like we're doing here.
I mean, the thing is, everybody just honestly watches they watch clips the next day on YouTube. You know what I mean? And no one's watching those shows live the same way that they used to. All right, we do need to get to break. We're going to leave you with this live picture from New Orleans, courtesy of EarthCam. Coming up next, though, like I said, our tribute to the late Reverend Jesse Jackson continues. We'll be right back.
You got me in living color, David. You look wonderful. Unequivocally, yes, David. I can't hear anybody now.
Welcome back to the Live Zone Prime Time on this Tuesday evening. Tonight, the tributes continue to pour in for the late, great Reverend Jesse Jackson. We got word early this morning that the lifelong civil rights activist and two-time presidential candidate had died. Fox's Mike Tobin takes a look back at his life and legacy.
Put your hands together for our leader, the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson.
Civil rights leader, politician, and community activist Jesse Louis Jackson was born October 8, 1941 in Greenville, South Carolina. He met Jacqueline Lavinia Brown. They got married in 1962 and together had 5 children. At that time, in the early 60s, the country was in the throes of the civil rights movement.
Will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood? I have a dream.
Jackson says he was so inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King, he went to work for him and was with King when he was assassinated in 1968.
Actually succeeded Dr. King after King's assassination in 1968 as the premier leader of the civil rights movement.
I never stopped serving.
In 1971, Jackson founded a group called People United to Save Humanity, or Operation Push. Jackson ran for the presidency in 1983, but lost the Democratic nomination to Walter Mondale. In a second try in '88, Jackson landed second place in the Democratic primaries, falling short to then Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis.
He played a significant role in the transition, to some extent, of the civil rights movement from protest to politics.
Around this time, the civil rights leader formed a group he named the Rainbow Coalition because it was made up of people from all races and ethnic backgrounds.
That is the unfinished business that I'm about, fighting for equal opportunity for all Americans and peace in the world.
But Jackson's reputation took a major hit in early 2001. A tabloid broke the news that the Reverend fathered a child out of wedlock with one of his aides, Karen Stanford. Some supporters were outraged, but several civil rights leaders spoke out in support of Jackson.
And Reverend Jackson will get up, brush himself off, and keep on marching. And we'll be marching right there with him. Congratulations.
Over the years, Jackson was recognized over and over again for his work on equal rights and efforts to help the less fortunate. He collected over 35 honorary degrees.
Reverend Jesse Jackson is just so special, not just to us, not just to our country, but to our world.
Supporters say in the last several decades, Jesse Jackson did more than anyone to move this country's civil rights agenda forward.
We now have the first African-American president. It would not have been possible if it were not for Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson.
I've sought to be a long-distance runner. I would like to be measured by my box score, not by the home run or the strikeout, but being a long-distance servant.
And Jackson's followers promised the movement will continue.
We are not afraid.
Mike Tobin, Fox News.
Jesse Jackson was 84 years old. He also had lifelong ties to the DMV, DC area. Fox 5's Stephanie Ramirez got a chance to talk to former DC First Lady Cora Masters Barry all about that. You can check out that interview on Fox 5 DC's website. In the meantime, for more on Reverend Jackson's life and impact, Global United Fellowship Bishop Joel Peebles Sr. joining us now live on the Live Zone Primetime. Bishop, thanks so much for spending some time with us here tonight.
Great day, gentlemen. Thank you so very much for having me.
I wanted to start off with your personal connection to the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
You know, one of the things Dr. Jackson has been is an iconic figure to many of us, and many of us in growing up. When I was a young tyke, at 19 years old, I had the opportunity to share a platform with him, and it was really a life-altering moment. Reverend Jackson shared an incredible speech. All of us on our feet. At the conclusion of that, I had the opportunity to do the benediction. What was astounding is after the benediction, with all of the incredible preachers that were around, politicians that were around, he selected me, called me out, and he looked at me and he said something that was profound. It lives with me today. He said, your generation is very theological, but I need to make sure you're economical. In other words, Dr. Jesse recognized that in order for us in this generation to go to the next level, we have to reach beyond just the theology and make sure that we are building financial platforms for our children and our children's children. That resonated so much for me, and I believe that's really with Rainbow Push and all of the other initiatives he brought forth is a mainstay of what he's left with our nation.
As someone who is also a younger person, a young tyke, you call me, Bishop, absolutely. My generation may not have known, Jesse Jackson for the fullness of his life. If you could take us through, how did he translate the civil rights era, the protest movement into politics and policy so effectively over all these years, unifying through that Rainbow Push coalition?
Well, I think you summed it up correctly. Jesse took policy, and he made sure that in the midst of our prayer, in the midst of our marching, that we took policy to the White House, to the county house, and to all other houses to make sure, the state house, to make sure there was proper legislation for people. It was interesting that in 1961, Jesse Jackson led affirmative action. In 65, the Voting Rights Act. In 68, the Fair Housing Act. All of these were significant factors in making sure that people that were disenfranchised, minority individuals, had a seat at the table. It was also interesting in the midst of all of that took place, he was under fire a lot. But I recognized that you cannot be great without taking great in fire. Friction is possible and friction is necessary, and friction is confirmation that you're in the right place. He set the pace for many of us, and even today we're standing on his shoulders.
Can you talk to me a little bit about some of the ways his work has carried on through your ministry as well?
So it's interesting that I am what you would call a PK. I'm a second generation preacher. My parents marched with Reverend Jackson and with Dr. King on the March on Washington. And one of the things that was critical as I began to, as a young type growing up, one of the things they made it clear, first of all, there was a racial divide, but they were not racist. They learned from Dr. Jackson, and they learned from Jesse. They learned from Dr. King that every black man is not my friend, every white man is not my enemy. We're all in this together. And I think Dr. King said it the best. When one is disenfranchised, we're all disenfranchised. One of the critical factors that he brought to bear within all of us was the ability to realize that he reached across the aisle. In bringing the Rainbow Coalition together, he reached to black people and brown people and white people and Asians, bringing them all together, realizing that in order for us to make it, we either make it together or we fall together.
One of those major moments that he was able to crystallize, that was, of course, the 1988 presidential election and his his nomination process, again, coming in second to Michael Dukakis, but that was a major campaign. Let me ask you, what are some of the things that we see today in our politics, presidential campaigns, or the Democratic Party that exist today because of Reverend Jackson's incredible campaign in 1988?
Well, let's go back to 84.
Yeah.
In 84,
Right.
he ran and he was third in the Democratic nomination. In 88, he ran and he was second in the Democratic nomination.
All right.
Now, let's jump 20 years later, and now we have Barack Obama, who is now the president of the United States. I'm sure Barack will tell you, I'm sure President Obama will tell you, I'm sure his wonderful wife Michelle will tell you, that it was the incredible work, the setting the pace, the opening the path of what Dr. Jackson did that opened up the door for him. People saw him. When they saw the work he did, and when they saw the fact that he could stand on the highest platform and begin to push legislation for people of color and people that were disenfranchised. And then 20 years later, here comes Barack Obama standing in his footprints, now making a major measured move into our community, into our globe. It was significant. And so he was what I would consider to be one of the founding fathers of this civil rights movement. And today in the Democratic Party, and please know, I've voted both Republican and Democratic in my life. I'm very clear on recognizing that no one party speaks on behalf of any one person. But I think all of us struggle with what we're seeing happening right now in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
And I think all of us realize that one of the things that Jesse Jackson did is he spoke truth to power. He was unequivocal. And he spoke for voices that could not be heard and people that were in struggling seasons. He was and still is a significant voice to those of us in America. And the Democratic Party has benefited from it. And I'm going to just reach across the aisle. For those who are Republican brothers and sisters, I will simply say to you this one thing. That this nation was founded on the blood of both black, white, Americans, Asian, and all peoples. In order for us to go to the next level, we ourselves must reach what we call our higher angels and begin to articulate in such a way that we are not divisive, but we are able to walk together recognizing that what takes place in this nation is either going to be a benefit to all of us or destructive to all of us.
How do you think Reverend Jackson would most like to be remembered? Not just here in D.C., but around the country.
He was a bridge builder. He was a bridge builder. As stated earlier, he reached across the aisle. He also, one of the things I thought was really interesting is he had a significant impact in multi-generations. It wasn't just my generation, but my children had the benefit of being blessed by Reverend Jackson. One of the things, he transcends a time and he makes himself in some ways transcendent, because his voice, his words, and that which he stood for is still critical for us today as a mandate, not just for people of color, but as a model for America.
What do you think made Reverend Jackson so special and able to resonate with so many groups of people in multiple eras and decades and generations? Like, what was it about his presence, his strategy, his just overall presence that allowed him to resonate so well?
So this is interesting because, again, this is something that impacted me as a young man. When we were in these auditoriums, and I've had several platforms with him, one of the things that stuck out to me is consistently, every time he walked in the room, he greeted every single person he walked past. whether it was a congressman, whether it was a president, whether it was a grandmother, whether it was a single mother, whether it was a young man who had just come out of jail and was incarcerated, whether it was a child, his heart was massive. He was also extraordinarily articulate. So you got to put those two things together. He was a big force of love. But when he came to the pulpit, he was able to share things in such a way that both affected those who had had a doctorate and also those who had had no education at all. And everyone felt as though whatever message was being shared, they felt as that message was directly centered for them.
And yeah, Chris.
Bishop, I was just going to say, I don't want to jump to any massive conclusions, but based on the fact that in our Zoom room that I know you can see right now, the number of names that are in here, I truly believe have something to do with the conversation that we are having right now. So whether it's Bernadette, Maria, Thomasina, Raquel, Lakeisha, I think those are all people who are probably living the legacy that he has left behind. He was a titan of the civil rights movement, obviously, along with Dr. Martin Luther King. Who is carrying on that mission now? Who can people look to, in his absence, unfortunately?
Yeah, that becomes a dangerous question. As a pastor, I remember Jesus when he was getting ready to ascend. He looked at the disciples, and at one point they were all jockeying for position. One says, "Can I take your place?" And you had Peter and John, "Can I take your place?" And Jesus said something that was profound that I think resonates today. He said, "Greater works will you do because I go into the Father." I think the greatest mistake we can make is trying to choose a person and not realizing that we all have individual responsibilities. Whether we are black or white, Asian, whatever our scenario is, we all have individual responsibilities to work in our area. If everybody does their part in bringing harmony and speaking for the disenfranchised, then no one person has the ability or even can stand up and speak for everybody. But we can all come together and speak as one mighty force. So to answer your question succinctly, I think it's everyone that has a heart to help those who cannot help themselves.
And one of the major lines in all of his speeches was, of course, keep hope alive. That speech that I've listened to all day today, I understand. Keep hope alive. America will get better and better and better. That brings tears to my eyes still. Let me ask you this. What does keep hope alive mean for 2026, actionably, as well as a vision, especially for my generation that's just so young and is picking up this mantle, all of us? What does that keep hope alive phrase mean strategically as well as through the vision?
Well, I think it's very, very easy for your generation specifically to be cynical. You've lived through 9/11. You've seen some of the things that were fought, people of color, that were fought for during our childhood and before we were born. They've now been eradicated. Affirmative action, Voting Rights Act's been gutted. And so it becomes real easy for you to be cynical. You see now the economy is not working for you, it's working for other people. It's real easy to become cynical. You see the fact that you've got folks that, if I'm just honest with you, that appear that can participate in Epstein files and get away with the most horrific acts, while people on the streets are being hosed down and sometimes gunned down. And sometimes there is a struggle with feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
So my honest words to you is that you are stronger than you think, but your strength is in unity. Part of the attack against your generation is division. It is to divide you. There's a wonderful book that is called Entertaining Yourself to Death. Part of this attack against your generation is to cause you to become either so cynical, so sad, or so mesmerized by all of the media outlets that you're not able to recognize that if you galvanize, and I galvanize, and my friend next door galvanizes, and my neighbor galvanizes, and we all start working together, people that are in political parties, in hierarchy, they're not in charge. You are in charge. Your vote is critical. The greatest danger to your generation is apathy, but the greatest power to your generation is unity. I would submit to you that this can be the most hopeful time, because just like our forefathers and your forefathers, and even those who began this great nation, We can change the direction, but you got to do it together. So your hope is not that they change, but that you come together and galvanize and you cause the change.
Wow.
Bishop Joel Peebles,
I
thank
got
you so
no words.
much.
It's incredible.
For spending some time with us here tonight, sharing
Thank you,
your
Bishop.
memories and your message with our Fox 5 Live Zone Primetime audience and everyone who joined us here tonight in the Zoom room. I mean, this is by far the biggest congregation
Ever.
we have ever had.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we owe it all to you. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Global United Fellowship. If people want to learn more about your mission, where can they go?
Well, specifically, I'm right here next to FedEx Field, used to be FedEx Field, Northwest Stadium, City of Praise Family Ministries. We are feeding folks that are struggling with families. We are sending young people to school. We are galvanizing and taking care of families, providing free counseling. At the end of the day, our mission is to save families one soul at a time. You can go to cityofpraise.com. Come see us. We're here to help our community.
All right. Thank you again for sharing your message and memories. And shout out to I
Yes,
couldn't even
thank
keep
you.
up with the
Thank you
number
for
of people
coming
who were
on.
joining this
This is
conversation. Thank you
such
to
an important
everyone
conversation and
who
legacy.
did, and I apologize that we didn't have time to get to all of you and share your memories, because that is
Yeah.
the beauty of this show. You scan that QR code,
Yep.
you weigh in,
You have comments,
share your
comment,
memories,
please.
comments. Yeah,
We
jump in
wanna
the
hear
comment
your voice.
section.
We wanna hear what
we
you
want
have
to
to
hear
say.
your memories. You can do it in the Zoom room comment section, wherever. So we're going to take a quick break, though. We're going to leave you with this live picture of National Harbor because it feels really weird to go to Bourbon Street and the party that's happening there.
Yeah, it's
in
a
the
little bit more
meantime. But on
wholesome
the
here.
other side of the break, we're going to talk about the social media trial happening out on the West Coast, the major implications it could have, and the huge names set to testify tomorrow. We'll be right back.
There you go. Testing 1 2 1 2.
How's that? Great. Okay, I can't see myself that well. You can see me better than I do. How's it look now?
All right, welcome back to the Live Zone Primetime on this Tuesday evening. He's the man many credit or blame for making social media what it is today, and tomorrow he's set to take the stand to testify in a landmark lawsuit. We are talking about Facebook founder and Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg. You see him right there. He is facing claims his company designs its platforms to be addictive to kids. This lawsuit is one of more than 1,500 similar cases and the first to go to trial. YouTube is facing a similar accusation. The outcome could determine whether Meta faces whether Meta faces billions in damages and is forced to change core features on its platform. So, for more on the case, we wanted to talk to a panel of experts. Brian Watkins is a criminal defense and civil attorney. David A. Katz is a former assistant U.S. attorney and former federal prosecutor, and they both join us tonight right here on the live Zone Primetime. Guys, thank you so much for spending some time with us here.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right, so Mark Zuckerberg has repeatedly been called ahead of Congress, but this is the first time he's ever testified. The last time, back in, I want to say in 2024, when he spoke to Congress, he apologized. Is that going to make a difference when he takes the stand tomorrow? And can you expect similar response from him?
You know, I think it is going to be a big deal. You know, they've already deposed him, so they know what he's going to say. So they've already interviewed him, they've presented him with questions, they know how he's going to respond. But of course, every time you have multiple statements by a witness out there, they're always going to use that to impeach him. And they're going to bring that up, why he apologized to Congress, if he's going to get on the stand tomorrow and claim he did nothing wrong and he's doing nothing wrong.
Now, for people who may not know this case mechanically from, an evidence perspective, what are the plaintiffs looking to prove from a technical perspective, and what are some of the ways that they're going to have to prove the intent of Meta and other social media platforms for this case to go in their favor?
Well, these are the civil plaintiff. This is a young woman. She's about 21 now. She filed the case when she was still a juvenile, a minor, I believe. It's not a class action. So she's going to try to prove that it was foreseeable and preventable, that Zuckerberg, Meta, she's also suing YouTube, that they should have known that they were going to cause this harm to her. I think that she's got an uphill battle, but of course this case has a lot of ramifications for other cases around the country. Some of them are class actions, some of them are brought by individuals. The defendants, that is Zuckerberg, Meta, etc., they're going to argue that she had her own problems, her own mental problems before she ever started watching Meta or YouTube, and that therefore on an individual basis, in her particular claim, she ought to not recover. She's going to say that it was predictable, that she would become addicted to this product. She was addicted, she suffered harm, and that she ought to be paid billions of dollars on account of her addiction and her harm. We're going to have to see. It's going to be a close call how this one comes out.
So, Brian, some of these tech giants for years have kind of used a content liability shield in a law called Section 230. What is different now that they could end up facing some liability in this case, if not one of the other 1,500 they're now facing?
Federal shield law only shields other people's actions on the internet. So, for example, people go and defame your name on Yelp. The internet says, well, we didn't defame you, even though there's a Yelp review out there saying defamatory things about you. You got to sue the person that said those things. We're just the billboard. You got to sue the person that posted the ad on the billboard. The billboard is not liable. In this particular case, they are suing the billboard by saying the way the billboard was constructed specifically creates a foreseeable harm for children that they would become addicted to it. You know what this case is? This case is this generation's tobacco lawsuit. The same thing happened years ago when everyone started suing the tobacco companies saying that your product was addictive. Prior to that, they were issuing cigarettes during World War II. Cigarettes were good for you. You lost weight. It was a health thing. Cigarettes were perfect until the lawsuit came out, and that's what we have right here, a tobacco lawsuit in this century for this generation.
David, how could a ruling in the plaintiff's favor change how potentially the algorithm is formed by a lot of these social media platforms, and what could it mean for DOJ, for example, to come, and after these platforms for the antitrust situation, as well as for regulatory measures in the future?
Well, I'm not on one side or the other. I'm a federal criminal defense attorney now. In fact, ironically, that civil courthouse where it's being tried is the old federal courthouse where I tried over 20 cases to juries right there in that building. So they have an LA jury, and that's worth taking into account. It'll be a cross-section of the county of Los Angeles. It's not being tried in some other jurisdictions where cases will be tried. They may be more difficult. I would just say this about tobacco, and I know that this is an awfully contentious issue, but the defendants will say that social media is not inherently dangerous. At the end of the day, tobacco was shown to be inherently dangerous. And as the other guest said, there was certainly propaganda that it was good for you. But at the end of the day, I think rational people would say tobacco is not good for you. It was harmful. It was addictive. Social media is good for you. It has a lot of positive effects. And that's why the head of one of the social agencies there, I forget which social media agency, he testified just the other day, a fellow with dark hair.
Yeah,
And he said,
Instagram.
you know, there's a trade-off. And the trade-off is between free speech and safety. And he may get grilled at the end of the day. The jury may not like that word trade-off. They may think the trade-off should always be in favor of safety. But there are real free speech ramifications here. And as your other guest said, it's a billboard. The judge has already ruled that for what they send out of other people, they cannot be held liable in this trial. That may also be controversial, but that was this judge's ruling in this case. So it's the operation and design of these social media outlets which is on trial. And as I say, that one could go either way.
So after Mark Zuckerberg testified to Congress 2 years ago, Meta started rolling out teen accounts that sort of limited what they had access to, kind of put these sort of safety precautions in place. Brian, do you think that was them acknowledging in some way, shape, or form they did have some responsibility? And was that too little too late? Because some people say that it puts too much, even these teen accounts, puts too much of the onus on parents and teens to keep themselves safe and not the companies to filter out harmful material.
Yeah, that's in the laws, what we call subsequent remedial measures. And that's when you go and fix the broken stairs, but you can still claim that the stairs were never broken and that you just slipped and fell because you weren't paying attention. It's the same type of thing. So the fact that they are now putting in different procedures and algorithms and things to help this, you know, the social media from not being so addictive doesn't necessarily prove that it was. But here's where it boils down to. You got a jury of 12 people, and 12 people are going to sit there and say, this stuff is addicting. I always have to tell myself to quit using my phone, and I'm using my phone too much. And that's what it's going to fall back on, and they are going to get hit hard. I guarantee it, mark my words, because all jurors don't care about the algorithm and all that stuff. They have their own experiences. Same way the juries in the tobacco case did. They were like, yeah, this stuff does make my breath stink. It does blacken my teeth. It does make, you know, my lungs don't feel good. And that's what happened. They're going to use common sense and say, this stuff is addicting. They made it that way. I'm addicted to it. Certainly a kid would be. And I think that they're in it for a big, big, big award they're going to have to pay out.
So when looking at talking to the juries, whether it be the, laying out the evidence or doing the closing argument, how from a technical perspective can the lawyers from either side make their case the most effectively to a jury of 12 people? Because again, sometimes you have a judge-based case, for example, where it's just one-on-one, and this is 12 jurors. How can both sides of the argument here be effective in their summations?
Well, this is a jury trial, and so I agree with your other guest that there will certainly be sympathy on the side of the plaintiff. She'll take the stand, she'll present a sympathetic picture. Her family's going to be in court. There is definitely a kind of a thrust behind holding these companies liable. They're big, they're rich. At the same time, if you look at celebrity cases, and Zuckerberg certainly is a celebrity, they tend to have good impressions on juries. I predicted a lot of these cases. What was it? Led Zeppelin with their song, They Won. That singer a couple of years ago that they said that his song was somebody else's song that he'd taken. He won. You look at this female skier who claimed that the other person interfered with her skiing. She won. So never bet against the fact that there is some celebrity power and that Zuckerberg will have a kind of persuasiveness. He didn't get to where he is by not being persuasive. So I think that the case, just as a handicapper, I think could go either way, and they will, in a very artful way, the defense attorneys, try to point out that as sympathetic as she is, as distraught as she and her family are, she had a lot of mental problems. They've been allowed to get that in. She's had mental problems, the plaintiff, since she was 3 years old, and her problems didn't start with watching YouTube or watching Meta, and she had the problems all along. And that she's going to say you kind of take the plaintiffs as you find them, but they're going to say that this particular plaintiff suing them ought to lose. Doesn't mean anyone else around the country will lose. And I think both sides will have a trial run. Both sides are well financed, and they're going to keep fighting. They're going to have fights like this all around the country after this one, however it comes out.
Yeah, well, Brian, that was my next question. What happens if, like you said, it goes against Meta, it goes against some of these social media? Do you anticipate seeing big changes after the fact, or are they just going to take each battle as it comes?
Yeah, they're going to be running from the hills. I'm going to file my own lawsuit if they win. I mean, yeah, it's going to be open season. And a lot of companies already recognize that. That's why a lot of companies already settled. 3 or 4 already settled out prior to the trial. And so they see the writing on the wall here. And, I understand what your other guest was saying. He's absolutely right. But that case actually goes to her damages. And her damages may not be that much because she had pre-existing problems. But the question in the injunctive relief that they're requesting, whether or not this does make kids addicted, is also a question that doesn't go to her damages. It's going to go to that jury. And good legal arguments were already presented to the judge, and the judges rejected most of them. That's why it made it to trial. This thing has been going on for a long time. They've been trying to kick it out of court. And all their legal arguments have fallen flat as well as the judges are concerned. Now it's up to jurors to make that common sense decision. Did they make this stuff addicting to us? I think the jurors are going to say yes.
Now, one of the major items that we saw in the tobacco cases back in the 90s was the states agreeing to terms on regulatory changes or the companies making some type of sacrifice. If this goes against Meta, for example, what do you see potentially, both of you, as being reforms that are made to these social media apps, the algorithms that could come from this as more protection for individuals in the future? Could it be a fund for mental health in the future, or would it be more technical changes that you would see in these platforms?
Well, I do agree, with your other guest, in general, that this case did survive a lot of attacks on it, motions for summary judgment, and here we have a jury trial. One of the reasons is that there are internal memos. I want to get which company it is. Maybe it's both companies, but there are internal memos which talk about it being addictive. They use the word addictive, and there are other things that certainly bolster this plaintiff's case. And I agree with you that the damages are one of the issues. Punitive damages are one of the issues. I don't know. I just have a feeling that they won't find that many punitive damages, but yet again, they may. In terms of the impact it's going to have, unfortunately, I think a lot of them, however the case comes out, are going to be cosmetic. They may set aside some money for some victims. The lawyers will make some money, the ones who bring the cases, of course. But I think in reality, they're not going to make any real fundamental changes because these companies have so much power in politics. Certainly under the Trump administration, he's now on the side of these big social media companies. And when the states try to make laws against them, like here in California, they're saying that the federal government, Trump is saying, should preempt our state laws, trying to do rational things, not only with the social media companies to rein them in, but also with AI. So they're trying to preempt this whole field, and the reason they're doing it is because the AI money and the social media money is so vast, they're really overwhelming politics. And this is the hope for relief. So I hope your other guest brings the lawsuit, and I wish him all the best in the world with it. And I think that this is one of those situations, it's like the civil rights lawyers right now who are helping the immigrants and so forth. The idea that Congress is going to act, maybe they will. The Democrats right now are demanding things with DHS funding. But, these private lawsuits, they are a great thing in America, and we've reformed a lot of wrongs this way. But I'm just saying the lobbying force of the AI money and the social media money, they just overwhelmed the legislative process and now the executive process under Trump.
Brian, I'll give you the last word about what we expect to see tomorrow and what comes next.
Zuckerberg is going to have a real uphill battle, I believe, because I think everyone has their own personal experience with social media. That is what's so difficult. Normally when we do a jury trial, we want the jury not to know anything about the case. And we tell them, and the judge tells them, don't do any experiments at home. Don't read the newspaper. Don't get anybody else's opinion. Only listen to what we're telling you here in the courtroom. But that is impossible to do in this trial. They all know what everyone's talking about. They all have their own experiences, and they're going to draw on that. There's no way to separate them from that.
All right. Live. Brian Watkins and David A. Katz, thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Live Zone Primetime. We will be watching closely, that's for sure, and I imagine we'll be checking back in with you guys when we know the end result of this case.
Great to be with all of you.
All right.
Thank
Have
you
a
both.
great evening. All right, we're going to take you back live to Bourbon Street where the party continues.
Is it wholesome still?
I mean, it doesn't look X-rated at this point.
No,
Tony
looking
P,
all right.
So, you know,
We are
don't
streaming,
jinx me
so,
on this
yeah.
one. Also, you know, again, I just want to give a quick shout out to everyone who joined us in our Zoom room. If I had had more time, it would have been in the hundreds, Yolanda Peebles said. So thank you to Bishop Peebles for spreading the word,
Thank you.
not just about Jesse Jackson, but also about the Live Zone Primetime, because we do this every single night. We
Sure
are
do.
here every single night, Tony P. Not every night do we have Bourbon Street parties happening, but we are here every night. We are talking about the issues that are
Important
happening around the
issues.
community and around the country. So I very much appreciate all of the new
Oh, yeah.
viewers we had,
Thank
not
you.
only in
Thank
our
you
Zoom
all,
room,
please.
possibly watching on Fox Local or watching on Fox 5 DC's
we
YouTube
love having
page,
you here.
weighing in the comment section. And of course, we also got to give a shout out to our OGs like West Virginia Ben, who said being persuasive is called marketing. Colleges teach that, so sue them. I'll play devil's advocate here. Cigarettes are awful, but you choose to buy them. Facebook doesn't make you post anything. You do that on your own. So yeah, you know, there are some parallels, of course, and I think a lot of people...
Yeah, there are.
What did I do there,
That's-
Tony P? Let's see if I can fix that. Ready?
That's-
Boom, there we go.
That's my mind when I use social media.
Yeah,
This
right.
is like, you know.
Tony P, I mean, you are obviously, you know, you make a living off of social media.
Yeah,
but at
and
the
I-
same
in
time,
multiple ways.
we have seen a pushback recently. People wanting to be more analog, people wanting to unplug more. These companies at the same time, there have been so many complaints about the algorithms, so many complaints about people's livelihoods. You know, it being harder to make one because they're not getting the views, they're not getting the kind of attention that they got anymore. So
You're looking at, I mean, I'll tell you, Chris, I mean, one of the things from a personal perspective, again, I make money through my advertising business and, you know, social media consulting and, you know, ad agency work, as well as, you know, doing content on my own brand deals. I've been seeing a lot of drops in views and likes, things of that nature, but mostly that's a Cadillac problem in the real world, right? I think the biggest thing that I notice is how a lot of these apps really incentivize anger and hate in comments back and forth, you know, who can generate the most hot takes and rage bait. And it's all about turning that emotional regulator that you have in your head into hyperdrive. Where like whether it's really great stuff and you get that high dopamine hit of that positiveness, or you get just a hit of dopamine from the rage that you feel. And then like you just feel drained. And a lot of people think it's the attention economy.
When you start talking about things like dopamine hits, then that truly speaks to what we're talking about here, which is
it an actual addiction?
An addiction.
And I think in some ways it
brain
is.
Chemistry that is impacted, not to mention the fact that what they do to sort of suck you in. And you know, Instagram has made a bunch of recently, like how you can tailor your feed and how you can see what they're pushing at you.
Right.
But, you know, just anecdotally, and I know everyone
Which is a
had
decent
to
improvement,
Brian's point about how everyone has sort of an experience about this, but like, you know, over the last 9 months, my wife and I were obviously very targeted with new parent content.
Exactly.
Some of it is fun and harmless. Some of it just preys on your worst fears.
Yeah, and that's how the rabbit holes start, and radicalization. That's how we see a lot of the manosphere, the red pill content that's misogynistic in a lot of ways and very violent. It starts with things like sports, and then they triangulate some of your niches and likes, and they bring it together, and they feed you down the same stuff that confirms it. Now, the biggest thing that I'm looking at is, could a case like this make the algorithms transparent? Where these companies now, they're not just giving you platitudes or generalities.
It's hard to say because
they say this is how we're turning it.
Is built on it. You know, that
It
could
is.
be proprietary information.
We'll find
I know
out.
for a fact one person has a complaint with Meta in particular. Melissa, we're down to our final minute. We're down to our final minute. Do you think these apps are addictive, and do you think they will have to pay for what basically this criticism that they are addictive?
They are addictive. Absolutely. They are addictive. But, you know, you can make your own decisions. We were made with free will, so if you want to make a decision to post or scroll or tag or comment, you know, that's a personal decision. Don't blame somebody else for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think part of it, Melissa, is definitely on, I think, just how we become so cynical and how negative we become as people over the last, 20 or 30 years. I do think that the apps do hypercharge it, and the question is going to be, is that hypercharging from the app and kind of playing on our worst impulses, is that illegal? Is that an issue for the courts to decide, or is it an issue for us to decide as people? Again, what do we create? What do we engage with?
Let us decide, not the courts. I mean, they want to control everything, for crying out loud, you know? They kicked me out, for showing my feet. I wasn't doing anything wrong. But yet you got people who post crimes, sexual content, all kinds of stuff. And, they don't do anything to them.
It is no right, yeah.
Our generation is different.
Yeah.
It's not like us. Our generation is different.
All right, Melissa, thank you once again for joining us, and thank you for keeping tabs on our Zoom room tonight with a lot of new faces in there.
And
we're down to
back.
our final 20 seconds. There's the party on Bourbon Street. Happy Lunar New Year to all who celebrate. Happy Mardi Gras to all who celebrate, and a solemn Lent. And good luck to everyone giving
Ramadan
something
as
up
well.
this year. Ramadan as well, of course, as always. Fox 5 News at 10 coming up next right here on Fox Local. Tony P and I will be back tomorrow night.
Yes, sir.